Hello viewers, my name is Jordan Golson, and this is the Rivian R1S electric SUV, and it is perhaps the first very large electric SUV, which makes it very interesting. And so now we have a couple of electric pickup trucks with a few more on the way. We have the Rivian R1T, of which this shares a lot of DNA. We have the Ford F-150 Lightning that I reviewed a few weeks back, and now we have this, which is the SUV version from Rivian. And from the B-pillar forward, they're basically identical. There is one difference between the R1S and the R1T up front, and it is right here on this stalk, because there is a control for the rear windshield wiper, which the R1T does not have. So that's the only difference up at the front. Everything else up here is the same. Beyond the B-pillar, things change up a little bit. So let's talk about this SUV. It's a 7-seater, so you get 2 in the front, then 3, then 2 more in the third row. There's a good amount of storage behind the third row, actually, which is pretty good. I wasn't sure how that would go because some 3-row SUVs, there is really zero cargo space. It's this sort of in-between category that luxury cars exist in. You can compare it to like an Audi Q7, something like that. One of the 3-row SUVs, but not the massive one. So this is very luxury and at a price tag to match. And so I was just having a conversation with another journalist talking about this, and it's sort of interesting to determine whether or not it's worth the money, depending on how you look at it. So this rig starts a little over $72,000, and that's for the smaller battery, dual motor version. This one as spec'd is about $97,000, and that includes the larger battery, quad motor, upgraded tires. This has 22-inch street tires on it. You can also get 20-inch off-road tires if you want to go off-roading, and those are actually the ones that I would choose. 97 grand, that's a lot of money. You can go 316 miles or so on a charge. From an EV perspective, it's not that great. You can get similar mileage for a lot less money. This has some things that those don't have. For one, it has 835 horsepower and can go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It is incredibly fast. That is sports car quick. And so if you compare that to other performance SUVs like an AMG Mercedes or a Porsche Cayenne Turbo, GTS, whatever, the price is very, very competitive for that realm of vehicle. What if you don't care about going fast? What if you want to go off-roading? Well, this with the adventure trim fitted and the off-road tires, which I tested earlier today, is incredibly capable off-road. 15 inches of ground clearance, it can ford 3 feet of water, it's got really good departure and approach angles, and it's got a shorter wheelbase, which is very nice for off-roading as well. So it's an extremely capable off-roader, competitive with Mercedes G-Wagon maybe, a more luxurious version of the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, even the Ford Bronco Raptor that I reviewed a couple weeks ago. Well, that's $80,000. So you're not too far off of that. Was it worth it? Well, that's up to you. But if you look at 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, 800 plus horsepower, very comfortable, luxurious, off-road capable, yeah, it's a good price. Plus, you get a $7,500 federal tax credit. Exterior-wise, the front, it's a bit polarizing. You either love it or you hate it, I think. It looks friendly. It's got the eye face, it's got a smiley face. It's interesting. It's different than anything else on the road. It's really easy to recognize, oh, there's a Rivian behind me, which is happening more and more, especially in Southern California where they are super popular. The front is identical to the R1T. Park them next to each other, you really will not be able to tell the difference until you look at the back end. But then when you do look at the back end, I don't like it as much as the T. It feels a little chunky to me. It's big, it's large, it's Jeep Wagoneer maybe, Range Rover, that's the sort of big rear end. It's almost flat on the back end, which I think adds to the sheer size of it. It does have an edge-to-edge LED brake light, which I really like. I think it looks good. It does feel like a bulky SUV. It does not feel sporty. It's not a sports SUV. This thing is big, and it's designed to carry you and your family and lots of stuff, which is exactly what you want with a big SUV. We get to the interior, which is the most interesting part. Up front, you have the big center touchscreen here, and this is all running Rivian software. It's pretty good. It's still in development, and you can tell that. When we got into it this morning, it did not know where it was. It thought we were on top of a mountain, and the GPS was very confused. The nav didn't work. It was not good. So then we had to figure out how to reset the screen, which you do by holding the outer 2 buttons on the steering wheel. and you hold them for about 15 seconds. It warns you that this is going to reset the system, and then it does. And it resets both screens, so it's not something you want to do while you're driving unless you have to. It restarted, figured out where we were, and then everything was good. But there are still some bugs to work out. It does not support Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in favor of their own stuff. It is a pretty good system though, and you've got the stereo, and it's happy to put the current song that's playing over there on the right side, and then you've got the map here, and then you also have the map over on the side screen over there. You have control over all the different systems, so you can go into the car here and choose what drive mode you want to be in. You can go into this, and you can open the hood, adjust the mirrors, all that stuff, because there are basically no buttons in here. It's very Tesla-esque in that way. And so you got lots of different settings. Most of it you can just ignore. One of the key ones though is the HVAC system. So you press the temperature over here and it allows you to adjust which way the vents are blowing. So if you want the air to blow on you, you have to go in here to adjust it because there's no knob to do it. But you can, take these and aim them, and I'm going to aim it at myself. And actually, if you look down into the vents, you can see them moving around. I don't love this. I wish I had just a manual control. I don't know what's wrong with that, but there you go. It's in here, and you can adjust these around to decide where you want the vents to blow. For the most part, you can set it on auto and leave it. You do have heated steering wheel, heated seats, cooled seats. There are many, many settings, but you can pretty much ignore all of those. Drive modes, we'll get into that in a minute, but that's how that screen works. You've got the speed over here, you've got the gear that you're currently in, park, reverse, drive, whatever, and then you have a little indicator that shows how much energy you're currently using or regenning. Down on the bottom right, you get a distance to empty and a little meter that shows how much of the battery you have left. And then you've got an indicator there that shows you how high or low you are with the suspension. There's 5 different levels of suspension, from the ultra high off-road, I'm gonna go rock crawling mode, to the very low, sort of I'm gonna have maximum sportiness, drive it on a track, whatever. Both the highest and lowest modes are not particularly comfortable. It does feel very luxurious in here. They have done an extremely good job with the stitching, with the seats. The wood up here is really nice. That's real wood. There's like these aluminum bits, the glass, the suede here. It feels very premium and is on brand with what the pricing should be. So you don't get in and feel like, oh, this feels like a way cheaper car than it actually is. So very big props to them for that. And the stereo in particular, this is a Meridian stereo and it's got a zillion speakers. It sounds phenomenal. I can't play it for you because it wouldn't sound like anything over the GoPro speaker and my microphone, but trust me, it sounds really, really good. So that part is fantastic. You got a ton of storage down here. There's a huge bin down this way. And there's also some cup holders here that pops out. I don't love the cup holder situation. I wish there was like some more of them or more room or something. You got a little storage thing there. You can kind of put your phone in. There's a little pad. You can leave your phone there. This pops open, and this is actually your glove box. This is really deep, by the way. You could fit like an entire license plate in there. There's a lot of room. There's no glove box up here, but you have that instead. And then one thing that's neat is down there, there's actually a Bluetooth speaker that you can pull out, and it docks, connects to the car, and can play whatever music the car is playing. So if you're like out camping or at a tailgate or whatever, you can pull that out, and then it charges off the vehicle. It'll always be fully charged up when you want to listen to your tunes. It does have a driver assist system, which is the Rivian Driver Plus, something like that. At the moment, it's adaptive cruise control plus a hands-on lane centering system. At some point in the future, I think it'll become more like GM's Super Cruise or Ford's Blue Cruise, with a hands-off system, but that's not there yet. There is a driver monitoring camera up here to make sure that you're paying attention to the road. That will be in use at some point, but doesn't currently do anything. Move to the back seat. You have a full 3-row seat. It does 40, 20, 40 split folds. You can just fold down the middle if you want, put some skis in there, something like that. Those seats do recline and slide forward and backward, and they actually slide all the way forward. So if you had like a kid's car seat or something in the back, but you wanted more room for the 3rd row, you could do that. Now, the 3rd row with the seats all the way back is pretty close to unusable, but if you slide them up a little bit, like 1 notch, then you could certainly put kids back there, and even adults would be fairly comfortable if you just slide the seats forward a little bit. Everybody kind of moves forward, makes some extra room. Your feet do fit under the 2nd row when you're sitting in the 3rd row really well, and actually they do the same in the 2nd row, fitting under the front seats. So you've got all that, and it's a large amount of room. The third row is not a place I would want to spend a 5-hour ride, but an hour, no problem. And back there you also have cup holders in the sides and a little storage bin with a USB-C port so the kids can put their Nintendo Switch or whatever back there, plug it into charge, and always have their devices stored, which is really cool. It's really well laid out back there. There are rear HVAC controls and there's vents and things, so all that is good. All the typical stuff you would find in a luxury car. Underneath the rear cargo area, there's a little thing that lifts up and there's storage under there, plus the accessories for the air compressor and the first aid kit. And then the air compressor is over on the left-hand side, and it's got a place to plug in, and it's got a little digital readout, so you can set the PSI you want, and then you can fill up your inner tubes or other car tires or your own car's tires if you're going off-road, because when you go off-roading, you do want to air down your tires, and so now you're prepped for that because that's in there. And then in addition to the rear storage, because this is an EV, it's got a pretty spacious frunk up front. That opens up and you've got weatherproof lockable storage up there, so you can put some things in. If you don't have quite enough room behind the third row seats, you get quite a bit of total storage to put stuff up front. You can easily fit rollerboards, overnight bags, backpacks, groceries, all kinds of stuff. So then we get into the driving experience, which is very similar but not exactly the same as the R1T. I'm not sure if the wheelbase is making it feel a little bit heavier, just you have a little bit denser weight over the wheels, or if it's because you've got the big rear glass canopy and it's higher up than the truck is, or what, but it does feel a little bit more weighty. It does feel a little bit more top heavy than the R1T. If you didn't drive them back to back, you would never notice. And actually, most people would never notice. I'm a car journalist. I drive a lot of vehicles. I notice stuff like that. It's an SUV, and it's a big SUV, and it's got a high ride height, and it's going to have a little bit of sway to it, and that's just life. That's what you get when you get a big SUV like this. It is not particularly noticeable. It is not worrisome. It doesn't make me worry about control. It feels solid on-road. It feels solid off-road. It's very capable, all of that. If we go into the drive modes here, just to touch on those real quick, you do have a couple different ones. All-purpose is, as described, it's for all-purpose, and it puts you at the standard ride height, and then sometimes it'll lower a little bit for better efficiency. So standard is 11.5 inches ride height, and then the low one is 10.1. So 1.4 inches difference. Doesn't feel like a lot, but it really does change quite a bit. Sport, that changes up the pedal mapping and makes everything a little more aggressive and a lot more fun. You can go into the ride here and stiffen that up if you want, and that really does make a difference. It makes the ride worse, but it does give you a little bit better feeling of control, makes the whole car a little less, I don't know, wobbly. That's probably not the right word, but it does that. And then it lowers the ride height, and you can actually bring that all the way down to lowest, which is 9.5 inches. So that's a significant drop from the standard. And that actually does make the ride a little bit firmer and quite a bit rougher because there's just no play in the suspension. And so if I were driving it around most of the time, I'd leave it in all-purpose, and it's fine. Leave the ride on soft, brake regen on high, and then you're good. There's a couple other places to go. Conserve, that turns off the rear motors, basically. It disengages those, lowers the ride height for better efficiency, and so you have less power and you're just using the front wheel drive to bring you along. If I owned this, honestly, I would just leave it in conserve pretty much all the time unless I really wanted that extra power. Give me a lower ride height, a little bit better range. You know, you don't need all that power. So speaking of power, 835 horsepower in the quad motor one, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and it does it. It's astonishing. It's crazy fast. This giant SUV has no business accelerating that quickly, but it does. Put it in sport, get around this hill, and then just boot it. Holy moly, uphill, just endless acceleration. Driving an EV is endlessly intoxicating and fun, especially when you have one like this and you can just put your foot down and just take off like a rocket ship up a hill. There are going to be lots of other videos about this and about charging speeds, things like that. It does have fast charging. but it's not going to be crazy fast, but you know, it's going to go from 10% to 80% in 40 minutes, something like that. I think it'll actually be a little bit faster. It peaks at, I want to say 190 kilowatts, pulling that off the top of my head. It's pretty quick. It's faster than an F-150 Lightning. It's faster than a Mach-E. It is slower than Kia EV6. There's lots of research out there into exactly how fast they charge, and it matters, you know, the temperature and all sorts of stuff. And so you can go watch those videos if you really want some detailed stuff and you want to nerd out on that. If you're a regular person, just figure it'll take half an hour to charge it from 10 to 80%. And the mapping will tell you where there are charge stations that are supported and how long you'll need to charge and when you might need to stop to get to your final destination. So you don't have to worry that much about figuring out, oh, how far can I go, and charging and range anxiety and all that. It will tell you a lot, and the 316-mile range is pretty accurate, you know, 300 miles, something like that. I really like this thing. Stereo's great, motor's great, 0 to 60's great, off-roading capability is great, but I would probably choose the R1T, and that's because, number one, a pickup bed is super useful and I don't need a third row of seating. It's got the tonneau cover so that you can cover up your gear in the back and keep it protected, and it's got the same frunk and all that, so you've got that protected storage. But also, it's a little bit more interesting. They've rethought a lot more what a pickup can be with the gear tunnel and the camp kitchen, that you can literally have a kitchen pop out of your pickup truck and you can cook and make food. It's incredible. They've really rethought what a pickup truck can be, whereas this is a big SUV. Nothing wrong with it being a big SUV, but it is just a big SUV, 3-row plus a frunk at the front with, you know, very fast 0 to 60 and all that. If you want a big electric luxury SUV, this is great. If you just want a luxury SUV, this is great at that too. If you're looking at an Audi Q7 or a Mercedes or BMW or a big Volvo, any of those, this is really interesting, even if you're not looking for an electric, because I talk to a lot of people looking at new cars, and most people, especially in the higher tax brackets where this car is going to be sold, are looking at EVs, especially for second vehicles, things like that. Second home, whatever. This is going to be very popular, especially in mountain country, New England, things like that. I really like it. If you're looking for an electric SUV, this is solid. You just need to put in an order and wait for it to come to you. If you get the quad motor, big battery, it'll come sooner. If you want the dual motor or the smaller battery, that's going to take longer because they have to do more engineering and validation and prove it out, and that just takes time. Basically, if you want to spend more money, you'll get it faster. If you want the cheaper versions, it's going to take a little bit longer. That's the Rivian R1S electric SUV. If you enjoyed this review, click here to get another one. Thank you so much for watching. Drive safely.